All right, we are live for another episode of Axe to Grind. I am joined tonight by Griffith Morgan from Secrets of Blackmoor and Arnecon. Griffith, thank you for joining tonight.
Thanks for having me on. It's nice to finally meet you, sort of in person.
All right, so
is your tech all happy? You look like you're having a.
Oh yeah, no, my tech was all right. I was getting some feedback there, but now we're good. Now we're good.
Okay.
So it's good to have you on here. And this is actually for everyone watching. This is the first time Griffith and I have actually gotten to chat. So everything prior to now has just been over email.
Yeah.
So we need the full story, man. How did it all come together? How did Arnecon come to existence? Secrets of Blackmoor. Do you play role-playing games at the source? Like everything, we need the full backstory.
Well, the movie, I feel like every time I go on shows lately, people want me to kind of repeat what happened to create the movie, and
we do in fact want you to repeat what happened.
What's that?
We do in fact want you to repeat what happened.
Well, I'll try to do a little compressed version of it. Basically, it just was a big accident, and stuff happened on the internet. I got to talking to people. I was telling Chris about it because we're both old gamers, so we play all kinds of things. And he just said, let's just go up to the Twin Cities and do some interviews and see what happens. And so getting into the project was kind of a long shot. Then Chris being like, yeah, let's just go do the interviews and see what happens was just kind of happenstance. We went up there. We didn't really know what we were going to get. I think a lot of people think we were really partisan with all the old drama around Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. But really, we were just like, let's just go do some interviews, see if there's anything there. Mm-hmm. And then once we have that, we can sort of decide what we want to do. And we did the interviews and we started finding out all kinds of stuff, which you can find out in the movie if you watch the movie, which is on Amazon even. And yeah, it just kind of came together as sort of a strange project, and we were working somewhat secretly for a long time, so people weren't aware that we even existed. We didn't really go public till we'd been working on the project for about 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then we started doing a little bit of crowdfunding. Most of it was just funded out of pocket, and then I mean, weird things happened. We just seemed to. The project itself was kind of magical. It just kind of happened. And then once the project was done, weird things started to happen, and we kind of unintentionally got suppressed because things were going on with Amazon is kind of the big, if you're an indie, it's almost impossible to get on services like Apple and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So all you have is basically Vimeo and Amazon. And Vimeo is kind of a backwater. It's not really a hot place for most people. And Amazon, YouTube wasn't doing movies back then. And Amazon decided to pull all the independent documentaries. So right as we were ready to go out and start selling the documentary direct to people, we just got removed from the internet.
Wow.
Yeah, it just destroyed us. I won't go into the details of how much it cost to make the movie, but it's a lot like buying a really nice house and not having a house.
Yeah. Now, are you by trade a filmmaker?
Yeah, I worked in film and video. Originally, I wanted to just be a video artist. I do a lot of weird art that most people wouldn't want to look at. And so the documentary wasn't something I've done before. I haven't done like a feature documentary. And so it was just seat of your pants. Well, you've got to write the narrative. Oh, you don't have anybody to read it. You've got to be the voice in the movie.
Right.
So
you and Chris were not previously connected into the Arneson estate or like that whole gang.
Not at all. We got to that through Kevin McCall, who's in Twin Cities. He was Dave Arneson's webmaster.
Okay.
And so I met him on the internet, and he just started giving me information, and he had things like Dave Arneson's phone list. So I had a phone list with a lot of the numbers were dead, but it was kind of a phone list for everybody in the game industry from sort of the golden era of when RPGs were first starting to boom. All the people that had worked in the industry were friends with Arneson. He knew everybody.
Right.
And so I had this whole list. A lot of the numbers I didn't call because they weren't people that were there when D&D was being created and Blackmoor was being created. So yeah, so that kind of was the way in. And then it was a lot of cold calls, which at the time I was a nobody. Nobody knew who I was. So I was calling people that are kind of famous, like David McGarry and David Wesley, and trying to convince them to be in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was it hard? Like, I get the sense sometimes that there was a certain reluctance to talk about some of these things. I don't know. It kind of varies wildly. Some of them, I suppose, are maybe too happy to talk, and then others are much more reticent.
Well, there's the whole TSR thing. Like, it sort of became the company culture to just Dave Arneson is an idiot sort of attitude, and most of those people weren't actually. There's only like 8 people that were at TSR when Dave Arneson was there in '76.
Right.
And so we did interview like Tim Kask is openly very anti Dave Arneson, and we did interview him. He wasn't actually there when it all got started. Like, he's not an originator in any way, so he didn't really fit into the format of the film, so we didn't use the interview. But we did do it for background information and stuff like that. And other people, a lot of the people, I don't know, there's a lot of people that, for them, Dave Arneson's issues with TSR and Gary Gygax are not something they wanted to hash over. It had been 40 years for them. They moved on.
Right.
To them, D&D is just a game. They don't care,
Yeah.
And so they didn't want to talk to us at all, which was unfortunate because there were people that probably know things that would be really interesting to hear, just hear their recollections of what it was like playing with Dave. And like, I think Sukup is still alive, and he played the Balrog. Like,
wow.
It's like the first dungeon adventure, and there are 2 sides.
Yeah.
So Arneson isn't just running. It's sort of like when you have a split party.
Yeah.
And Arneson runs a group of people as a split party, and they're against each other. And so you've got the Balrog and the Wizard in the dungeon with all their minions, and the other players coming into the dungeon to find them.
Right.
So it'd be really cool if I could get Sukup to talk to me, because that would be just astounding.
Yeah. Yeah. So now Rob Kuntz has been very active on Twitter. I see you guys chat a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I was now what's interesting about Rob is that sort of the official biography that I always understood is that Rob was Gary's protege. That he had been almost an adopted son to Gary, and and his name prominently shows up in a lot of TSR books. But Rob is also very clearly a major fan of Dave Arneson, like tons of respect there. So and I was curious, is that a later development in life? Like, does Rob come to appreciate Dave's contributions more later, or is that like all through the process he's been?
That happened in '76. I mean, my sense of things, I'm hearing things secondhand. So
of course,
I'm a historian. I hear things secondhand. I have a bias, and I try not to inject it into the story in the movie, but I do have a bias.
Right, but we're interviewing you now, so you can share your bias, right? Now, this is my documentary of Griffith Morgan, so we get to hear your bias.
What did you really find out? What's the dirt?
Exactly.
So the bias is just that there was a lot of friction in the group because I described them as a bunch of people who got a lottery ticket that won. And so they've got all this money, and then people come in, and there's all this pressure. And so there are certain people that are creating friction within the group. And the really cohesive element in the group is I always forget his name. It's G and K. K was I forgot his first name, but K was kind of a really binding force in the group, and he was Gary's partner. K has a heart attack around
he passes,
75 or 76, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Kay was holding all the
Is it
stock was in
Donald
his.
K? Is it
What's that?
Donald K? Isn't that his name?
No, I don't. I'm not sure if that's what it is. Yeah, Don Kay. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Um, you know, even when Kay passes away, his wife doesn't really appreciate that he's spending all the family money on this silly little project. He's got all the books in his garage. They have to go to her house and convince her to give them the books. Like she's got all the stock, you know.
Right.
And so, and I think Kay is kind of it's hard to get information on Kay. I think Rob is probably one of the biggest sources for information on Don Kay. And he's really one of the unsung heroes because he was the guy that staked the whole project and put down, I think he took out his savings, which at the time might have been $3,000, right? Which today, if you amplify that, you know, that a $3,000 in 1974 might be $30,000 today.
Right.
It's your nest egg.
Yeah.
And he just laid it out. He was convinced this is going to be a thing. So it's really tragic, you know, that he was really a driving force from a real business perspective, as far as making this happen. And he died like a year and a half later after it comes out, you know.
Right. And his wife, I guess, does not keep her immensely valuable TSR stock for later usage, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what the story is there. I don't have any real info. But there's a lot of pressure within the office. And so then they start doing stuff like the narrative is that Dave Arneson is a lazy slob and isn't working at all. But Dave Arneson is down. At one point, they move him to the mail room. So he's working 8 hours a day, packing boxes and labeling them and shipping them out.
Yeah.
And so if you talk to David McGarry, he's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm the treasurer. I'm doing treasurer stuff. Arneson's doing shipping. We're the ones running the business. Like you get an order, the treasurer goes, oh, I'll put the check goes here. I'll tell Arneson to pack up a set, send it off. And Gary and other people are upstairs making modules. And so, you know, Arneson couldn't really, if you've worked an 8-hour shift doing something like packing boxes.
Yeah.
You know, and he did other things around the office too. And then there were like little things like Cask was doing the Dragon magazine.
Right.
It might have been, I think it had just shifted over to the Dragon from Strategy and Tactics. And so the guys offered to help Cask edit. They were like, you know, we'll edit it for you. But Cask was young and kind of egotistical. So he took that as an affront. So then they would just take the newest issue and they would go through and draw circles around all the typos. And they made it a game to see who found the most donuts. And whoever found the most donuts would I think they had to buy the donuts for the office. So Cask took that really personally. There's other stuff like that.
Wow.
And I mean, I know a lot of it's childish stuff. Like they're all in their 20s and they're and so yeah. And at one point, Cask was sitting in Dave Arneson's chair, and I think he was smoking a joint from the story I got, and it dropped and set and like burned part of Dave Arneson's chair because it set it on fire. And so there was a lot of animosity there. So Gary took sides with you know, like the Blooms and Cask, like that faction. The upstairs basically went to war with the downstairs.
Gotcha.
The art department survived somehow, just tried to stay out of the politics. But just coming around full circle, everybody wanted to do cool things, and it was an exciting time for them. And suddenly there was a lot of control for coming from above, and people were trying to, you know, McGarry had a degree in economics. He was trying to tell them, you need to do some things to handle this and manage the money better. Right. And you look at, I mean, if you talk to anybody, TSR makes millions of dollars, and within 10 years, Gary Gygax loses control of the company. That speaks for itself. Like that's a really short-lived corporation. That's a trend, and it's done. Yeah. And so during all that, there was a big meeting. I won't go into all the details because other people have covered in books, and I think there's even a documentary that covers more of that period out there. It might be the podcast with Stormberg in it. And Rob was at that meeting, and Rob voted. McGarry proposed that he wanted the Bloom's father to come in onto the board, and because McGarry basically was saying at the time, he was like, "I'm a long-haired hippie. We're all long-haired hippies. If we go to the bank and say we need $20,000 to fabricate games that we're going to sell, the bank is going to laugh at the hairy hippies."
Right.
But if you have the Bloom's father, who's like an established businessman, going there to the bank, he knows them, he's got relationships with all these people, and he can be like, "Yeah, we need a loan for this company because, here's the numbers, it's looking good. We need to fabricate this much stuff so we can really get the stuff out there and really grow the company." And Gary took it as a threat. And, I don't think everything I've heard makes it seem that Gygax sort of treated the company as sort of a personal project. And so he was kind of insecure and threatened easily by things.
Right.
And this is a long story. Anyway, at that meeting, things broke down. Rob voted with the downstairs crew, which was also mostly Twin Cities people, and there was a big schism. And things happen. I mean, it's just history. Things happen the way they did. And then, I mean, I think it's a shame because you look at the Blackmoor bunch are very tight, and they're all still friends, and even if they may not agree about certain whatever things, they're still respectful toward each other. After all of that happened, one of the Blackmoor bunch guys, Dan Nicholson, started a consulting company for basically as computer programmers. And he had Wesley and Ross and Dave Arneson and McGarry and a couple others as consultants in this team, and they went off and worked for I always forget what it's called. It was those little tiny, they were kind of like the original Game Boy. It was like the first thing like that.
Oh, okay.
And they would port upright game machines like you find in an arcade, and they would literally play them, videotape it, and go through and make notes of every action that a player could take in the game and create these lists. And they would take the graphics and reduce them down to like an 8-bit thing.
Right.
And but they all stuck together and went on and worked. And I'm like, man, Gary should have stuck with the Blackmoor bunch guys if there really was going to be a schism, because those guys always, they were always doing stuff and successful doing stuff.
So that was so it's functionally two different. So it's really two different groups. The Blackmoor Twin Cities group, and then like this Lake Geneva group. So what happens to Rob after 76 when he sides with the downstairs?
I don't know, because he was really young. I'd have to look at how what year he was born, but he's got to be like 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of amazing. Like, you're a kid hanging out. Next thing you know, you're hanging out with the guy that made the thing that everybody wants.
Yeah.
And with both of them, and you're saying like, well, I think we should do this, and I think we should do this, and your ideas are ending up in published books.
Yeah.
That are like Greyhawk supplement, And just recently, he was talking about how he invented the different hit dice for different classes thing.
Right.
And so Rob is kind of this inadvertent teenage genius game designer.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's interesting to look back at that. And,
it's totally
I don't know what else to say.
That's totally fascinating. I mean, it's such a tragedy in a certain level because, today video games, having grown, particularly the video games that have grown out of the role-playing game space, it's like by itself, like the computer RPG space, I think is probably bigger than Hollywood at this point.
Oh yeah.
And in sort of in a just world, in a different timeline, like all of these guys should be, they were for our industry, they were the Steve Wozniaks and the Steve Jobs, but somehow it doesn't kind of work out for them the way it did for the Silicon Valley guys, right? Like,
well, even Silicon Valley, there were guys that were really foundational in developing really core little nuggets of information, right?
Yeah.
And they were successful in their careers because they were smart guys and they worked for various
Yeah.
companies. But nobody knows about the people. If I told you, I don't know, like who invented the plasma screen? Do you know who invented the plasma screen?
Right. No, I don't. I don't. Yeah.
And I don't remember his name, but they were invented like in the late '60s,
Right. Yep.
and things like that. You know. So yeah, I don't know. Back to the idea of them being. I mean, it's strange because when Gary Gygax died, he was fairly destitute.
Was he?
From what I gather,
Really?
and Arneson wasn't really rolling in it, but Arneson was, before he passed away, he was working as a college professor teaching game design.
Right.
So
Full
Arneson
Sail.
stayed in the business his whole life.
Yeah.
In one way or another. He just went over to computer games because that was kind of the thing that was happening. But I have role-playing games he designed that are complete games. Like I have a gangster game.
Yeah.
I have the estate has an entire gangster game that he wrote, which is kind of interesting, and it was just never published.
Right. Right.
I think that maybe also like TSR would do things like if they saw they sort of acted the way IBM acted, and they would try to smush competition. And so
Yep.
if they heard word that somebody was designing a certain kind of game, they would make their own version and just throw it on the market to sort of poison the well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of games like that. The Blackmoor Bunch had 2 sci-fi games that RPGs that whole drafts exist, and they were just never published because
Right.
there was no reason to.
Right. Well, what's interesting is that after Gary leaves TSR, more or less those same tactics get deployed against him, right? Because he tries to do several games thereafter, and he gets nowhere. And they, I believe they go into lawfare against him. They litigate against him to keep him.
Right. I don't know. I'm not really focused on the later stuff, and I'm not really interested in the drama because I'm more interested in the ideas that are involved. And so for me, like, and that's where people are like, well, why didn't you make a movie that goes into everything about TSR? And it's like, well, it's just a role-playing game. Like Blackmoor is sort of the pinnacle where you create the play style that's used in Dungeons and Dragons. And so after that, I like all the different mechanics, all the financial shenanigans,
right?
The millions spent to try to make their own dice so they don't have to spend money on dice or any. I think there's a lot of self-dealing in the company where they're buying things with company money so they don't have to pay the taxes on the income and stuff, and it looks like a loss. All that stuff. They did all of that. It was the 70s.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that's just pretty much what people did in that time period. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the ideas, right? So, so I think nowadays it seems to me people know a lot more about Braunstein than they are Braunstein. I don't know how you're supposed to say
Braunstein. It's like Frankenstein.
Braunstein. Okay.
Just think Frankenstein and Braunstein.
Braunstein. People seem to know a lot more about it than they did 5 years ago. Certainly than they did 10 or 15 years ago when it was so obscure that basically about the only person I knew who even talked about it was Alan Varney when he would write kind of esoteric articles for The Escapist on the history of role-playing games. And then, we have John Peterson sort of starts to kind of bring back some of the history. And
Peterson doesn't really talk about it. He's got like a paragraph about it.
It's very brief. Yeah. And then you guys really brought it forward, and David Wesley is a recurring guest of honor at Arnecon.
And Gary Kahn, and he's star material now.
He's star material now. Yeah. So I would be curious from your perspective, because this is something a lot of people argue about, and I've had other folks who are active in the space now, and they've shared their definitions. So from your point of view, the Braunstein as Dave Wesley creates it, and then how does Arneson then transform it to bring us to Blackmoor?
The fundamental difference is that when you're playing a Braunstein, you're not interacting with the environment.
Okay.
You're interacting with other players. The referee is there to provide you with anything that's, say you want to buy something that you didn't start with. Like I got all this money and I want to go buy a bomb or something for my, or I want to buy a bunch of I want to hire some thugs to do something for me.
Right.
The referee will step in and either allow you or not allow you to do something. It's not really the same sort of thing as you'd encounter in Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. And so Brownstein is really a social interaction and bargaining game that in that way.
Hmm.
And the setting is established before the game. It's like in Brownstein, you're in a, because there are a couple Brownsteins that Wesley created, but in the original one, you're in a city in Prussia. It's Napoleon has taken over France. Everybody's worried that the French are going to show up and invade, and so the game starts and stuff is going on, and there may be spies. I don't know.
Hmm.
The city guard has got to figure out if the defenses are up to snuff. The mayor's got to figure out if the finances have been mishandled or not, because they might need more money to do things to prepare for the French coming, stuff like that. And so it's just, he just kind of does a setup. The play begins really when you get the prologue, which can be like a half an hour long. If Wesley's in a good mood, it might be an hour lecture on the times, like the time of Napoleon. It's like a huge history lesson. It's kind of funny. And then play starts, because you've been filled up with this information about what the setting is like and what you can do and what you can't do.
Hmm.
And then everybody gets a character. Your character has a name, a description, and then you have like motives, that things you want to do and accomplish, and then you just set out and start talking to people and going around and doing stuff.
Right. Right.
The big thing that Dave Arneson does, which I think is it's again, you can't talk about this stuff without talking about Rob Kuntz, because he did like a real systems analysis on it,
Yeah.
and Arneson does this thing where he just takes children's make believe and combines that with fog of war, and in a different way than Wesley does. Wesley's fog of war is information. Each player has information other players don't. And
Right.
so that's fog of war, because you're operating in a place where you think you know what you're doing, but other people know things you don't know. With Arneson, when he invents the dungeon, it really seems to start when he invents the dungeon.
Hmm.
You have a game reality that has rules, because you have a map, right? And the map dictates where you can and can't go. And it's kind of there's a lot of stuff in the original play style that's very like sort of common knowledge. Like we all understand, if we look at a map and there's an obstacle there of some kind, we can't go there. You don't need to explain, I can't
Right.
go where the solid rock is, right?
Right.
And then the rest is all described. It's all verbal. Arneson wasn't using miniatures. I think that was a big misunderstanding. A lot of people seem to think that he was using miniatures, but in the interviews, it's like, no, he didn't use miniatures. It's all in our heads.
Mm.
We were making a map, and he was describing, you come to a door, we listen at the door to see if there's any noise,
Hmm.
try to open the door. All of that is very much a sort of a trying to think how to best describe it. It's like you're playing in Wesley's game, you're playing with the players. In Arneson's game, you're playing sort of like an adventure story more.
Hmm.
So you're exploring and you're encountering things, and there's this fog of war that you don't know what is out there until you find it.
Right. Right. Right.
That would be kind of the fundamental thing for it, as far as I'm concerned, is that kind of difference there.
Yeah. So
Does that make sense?
the way you're describing the Brownstein actually sounds virtually identical to talk-based live action role-playing games that I've played at conventions.
I
And
think that people are doing. I have a feeling that the Brownstein style kind of leaked out, because I mean Wesley's and the Blackmoor bunch was big. They were
yeah,
running these things for years.
yeah,
And I think that style kind of leaked out, but it's also sort of an organic style that can occur.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
Um,
I remember in high school going to conventions and and at West Point when we would run war games like Diplomacy and things like that. It was very similar to what you're describing as Brownstein.
Diplomacy, yeah. I mean, that was an influence, I'm sure,
Yeah.
even unconsciously.
Yeah. And with all those games, like you can play them, like diplomacy, for instance, you can play diplomacy very procedurally if you want to, but you can
Hmm.
also play diplomacy essentially as a live action role playing game where, everyone
Right.
is, everyone is gathered and you're all off having meetings, everybody stays in character and things like that. You can do that, and it's actually much more fun to play it that way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and that very much sounds like that. And so then the innovation that Arneson brings is he adds this PvE component, as we would call it in the video game industry, player versus environment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of, I mean, it's open for, because Arneson did player versus player
as
also
well.
in the
Yeah,
town
yeah,
really early on. I think that one of the big mistakes the historians make is they try to create a linearity in how things evolve,
hmm
and there are things can evolve and things can devolve,
right,
and also there's sort of like a things can kind of go forward, but then you come back.
yeah,
It's not like they had like it's not like a development team that is given a task like I need you to make a thing that does this. They're
right,
like, okay, they go to work on it and they're trying to go in that direction
right,
and and get there. And so you see a lot of different things where it's really unclear if they had reached a certain point and then they came back. And so with Blackmoor and Brownstein, there's a divergence. Okay, and so
hmm
one game is really focused on this sort of interplayer activity where you can have allies, neutral parties that can be allies or enemies,
right,
and just natural enemies. And then you
right,
have the Blackmoor, the eventual Blackmoor style, which is the D&D
yeah,
style.
yeah,
Um, and so I don't know. I think it's complicated. You can see where the things kind of trickle in, but
hmm
it's really hard to get a really solid, like the documentation is really difficult to locate. There's not a lot
right,
left. And
right,
then on top of that, the anecdotal evidence is great, but a lot of times it's hard to set it in time.
yeah.
I'm kind of getting lost. Maybe I'm going away from what you were talking
No,
about,
no, it's
but
great. I
you
mean,
got me going.
so it's also, I think, part of the challenge for us to reconstruct it is that the emerging role playing game space in the 70s is built on the the war game space, and that war
Yeah,
game space has also been lost to time, even more so than the role playing game space. Like if you go and you read Tony Bass descriptions of the Hyborian campaign, and like I read them and just smoke comes out of my ears because it sounds so amazing.
yeah.
And by the time you're into the 80s or the 90s, like those sort of things are just barely being run. Like there's a few clubs left in the country where they get run, and it's just you know that whole focus of the hobby has declined.
I
So
think I think that there's a lot of like the war game space. There's this overlap, like you're talking about, like the diplomacy thing. Diplomacy, the Blackmoor bunch, a lot of them were really hardcore into diplomacy. It's just documented. Like P.
mhm,
Gaylord, I think, published his own diplomacy fanzine. I know that Ken Fletcher was a diplomacy player early
oh,
on,
interesting. So
and so you have that diplomacy influence, but then you have and it's an issue of scale.
right,
Diplomacy is up here, right?
yep,
And so you've got this sort of grand strategic scale game. It's obviously an early precedent. It comes before like things like Civilization and stuff like that,
right,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And but then there's also the different gradations of like big army scale, like strategic army scale, down to smaller, brigade scale, and then we're
yep,
talking about man-to-man scale.
yep,
Um, and so people were interested in that. There are old fanzines and stuff where people are talking about just having individual soldiers and what their individual equipment is and stuff like that.
hmm hmm
But it's a big, I don't know. I think what Arneson did is a really big leap. I feel like in the movie I didn't have enough time to really explain how profound the Arneson leap is from what Wesley's doing. But Wesley's leap from what came before is, I really cover that because I could talk to Wesley. And so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that there is definitely, like, within the wargame communities, if you're a wargamer, I don't know if you're a wargamer still or not, or
I mean, I consider myself still a wargamer, but I don't
Yeah.
have many people to play war games with in my local area. So
yeah, I know that's the thing. I was like, how do I get people together to, like, smash their armies together?
yeah, yeah,
But I don't know. There are a lot of products that kind of fit within that range. One of my favorites was Pax Britannica. Kostikian, I think, was the designer.
yep,
And that is a phenomenal game. Another one where you're talking about, even if you're not using funny voices and stuff, you're having meetings in side rooms, and you're the leaders of
absolutely,
countries, and you're negotiating things.
absolutely.
And they even give you, like, a thing you can Xerox off and print out, which is like a treaty sheet.
Yeah,
You would write down the treaty and the terms of the treaty. Is it a defensive treaty? Is it an offensive treaty? Is it
yep,
whatever?
yep, yep.
So yeah, so there's, I mean, I think it's in there, but I just don't think it's as popular now.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right.
And I think that's the advent of computer games and the real-time aspect kind of destroyed that.
Yeah, I think it definitely did. Bradford mentions that the dominance of PvE mirrors that we see in MMOs, which is definitely something I noticed because I started in the video game industry prior to the rise of World of Warcraft, and in the early MMO space, people were really trying to create these complex living worlds where there would be player versus player combat, but also player versus environment, and the monsters had an ecosystem, and like Ultima Online and Shadowbane and Eve Online were all trying to create these type of games. And then World of Warcraft comes along with, like, it's just going to be a theme park. You just hang out and you kill things with your buddies, and it
Right.
blew everybody else out of the water. So yeah.
I mean, I was there. I was involved with computers in the 70s. And so I saw a lot of the really early designs for games as a player, as a user. And so there were things like, I think the original Empire game on the Plato system was called Conquest, and each player was the ruler of a planet orbiting the sun.
Yeah.
And it had economics and all the stuff, And so it was multiplayer through a computer, and that was like in 1975, maybe, when I saw it. And so I think that stuff has always been there. I remember we wanted our role-playing games to sort of, well, we at least I wanted to have this sort of the full experience of, I start out as a fighter, I get my money, I build my castle, I start to build an empire. There are other people out there, and they oppose me, and we start to do all this stuff. And it's really hard to get people that are willing to do things to that extent. I mean, that's kind of when you look at I always talk about the Blackmoor bunch because I'm kind of their historian.
Yeah.
But when you look at the scope of what they were doing in that time, and even if you just look at the number of people they had that were willing to show up and play, and were willing to do these massive campaigns, there's a list of country rulers for the Napoleonic campaign that happens around 74 or something like that.
Right.
And Gary Gygax and Rob Kuntz were involved with that. Don Kay too. They were the United States. And I think I show it in the film. I just kind of scan over it. It's got like 25 or 30 names on there. Well, on top of that, there are a lot of auxiliary players that just show up to the game night, and it's like, Austria is going to war with whatever country, Germany or whatever. And we need 6 players on a side.
Yep.
Mostly because of the physical aspect of moving, like when a major army meets and you have to use the miniatures. So your scale is the scale that it is. And like the battle that's in Secrets of Blackmoor, the Napoleonic battle, I counted the miniatures. I lost track at over 1,000 figures on the table.
Yeah.
Well, if you want a turn to be speedier than about 40 minutes a turn, you need a lot of people to move miniatures.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the way you reward them for doing that is you put them in command of the units, and so they move their units.
Yep.
There's a
Absolutely.
real physical aspect to tabletop wargaming like that.
Absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
know why I get on these tangents, but
No, I love
yeah,
it. I love it.
I
I
love
was
wargaming. I'm
I
passionate about it.
same. I mean, that's why I built ACKS the way I did, and goes all the way back. I learned to play war games and tabletop role playing games at the same time of my life. And when I was at the West Point War Games Club, we played them. They were interchangeable to us. We war gamed our role playing games and we role played our war games, and it just we blended back and forth. So okay, so let's talk about Arnecon
Oh yeah,
because so
Arnecon.
you go from
It's like Arneson with a C in it, so it becomes Arnecon.
Arnecon. So you go from Secrets of Blackmoor. What's the origin of the decision to do Arnecon? How does it get started? How did you get the rights to do it? It's
Oh,
yeah,
well, we talked to Malia. It took me about 3 years to actually talk to Malia. I would talk to people and it'd be like, oh, I don't know, I got to talk to Malia. I don't even know if they were talking to Malia, but I just wasn't allowed to talk to Malia for about 3 years. It was just like, we don't know who you are. So many people have showed up on the doorstep claiming to want to do good things, and usually they're trying to exploit the property somehow. You got to prove who you are, right? And so I don't know. We made friends with Malia and her husband Luke, and we kind of proved that we aren't jerks. And so we got, it's just like it's a real trust thing. Like here's some more, here's some more. So as far as using the IP, we've done a lot of things to help them, kind of behind the scenes. Now the Blackmoor trademark is back in the hands of the David L. Arneson estate. And
that's awesome.
Chris and I were behind the scenes. We kind of, along with some other people.
Yeah.
I won't name people because I don't know who. It's like
Yeah.
they can say it for themselves. But we were instrumental in making it possible so that the Arneson estate can own that trademark again.
Yeah.
And then so that's kind of the relationship. What we did was we found so many games when we were making the movie. Like that's the thing people don't understand is there's so many games that just never got published. And so we were finding games in old people's basements and stuff, doing interviews. They'd be like, "Oh, I got this thing here. You want, here you can have. Here's a draft. You can have it." And so the one thing we discovered, and then Dan Boggs was really the person the key to verifying what it was the Tonnisborg dungeon. And that's a whole long story. It's in the book. It was lost for 35 years. So we found that, and when we did a Kickstarter to fund the movie, we thought, well, if we write a book and put a book in the Kickstarter, it might help us raise more funds for the movie.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we were just like, well, what should we do now? And it's like, well, let's just do our own convention.
Right. As you do.
And this thing here, I got the T-shirt right here.
Oh yeah.
T-shirt, Arnecon.
Awesome.
T-shirt.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're kind of nice.
It's coming up soon. I love that you guys did it in the Twin Cities.
Well, it was. I mean, it's a Dave Arneson convention.
Yeah.
And it has all of his friends there.
Yeah.
Or not, as many as want to come, they get free tickets. It's just like, if you show, if it's an afterthought and you just show up and it's like, oh, you're one of the Blackmoor players, come on in,
Cool.
And so, and it's kind of weird because it's not like we're saying you can only play old games there. Whatever people want to, if you're a DM and you want to run whatever game, you just register to run it. We put you in the schedule. Right. We don't care. And but it seems like people have a feel for it, and so most of the stuff that's being run there is kind of older flavor,
Yep.
But you're gonna, excuse me, you're gonna be running your game. I mean, it's not like your game is, a 30-year-old game or 50-year-old.
No,
game.
It's got an old soul though.
What's that?
It's got an old soul. My game does. Yeah, it's funny. So my my mother and my brother all live in the Twin Cities. They live in the Minneapolis area. So I have a very funny Dave Arneson story.
Oh, really?
So there's the world's greatest tabletop gaming store is in Minneapolis. It's called The Source.
The Source, yeah.
And it's like it's the mecca of tabletop games. It's astonishing. The Source. Every time I go to Minneapolis, I'm like, oh well, but we got to go to The Source, right? I love it there. And so my brother goes there when he can, and he takes his two boys there, and they're sort of growing up gamers.
Hmm.
And then one day I get a call from my nephew Griffin, and he's maybe 10 years old, 8 years old. He's not very old. He's like, oh, I learned to play Dungeons and Dragons today. And I'm like, "Oh, who taught you? Did your father teach you?" He's like, "No, no. We went to the source and we learned from this old guy. He was the one who created it." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Created the adventure?" He's like, "No, no. He says his name was Dave something. He created it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Your first game of Dungeons and Dragons was with Dave Arneson?" He's like, "Oh, yeah. Do you know him?" I'm like, "Well, no, I don't know him. Damn you, Griffin."
I know who he is, but I don't know him.
So yeah, so he's got like this signed copy of the rule book by Dave, and it's like, and this is just before Dave Arneson died. I guess he died
Yeah.
not much longer after that, but he's got this signed copy of the rule by him, and like, and his very first game of Dungeons and Dragons was run by Dave Arneson. I'm like, man, it's unbelievable, and it
Yeah.
totally went over his head how awesome it was. It just
Yeah.
totally, yeah.
It's funny, the whole fan thing. Like these days, a lot of the younger gamers just have no idea who the older gamers are. And
Yeah.
they could walk by them in a convention and just, I don't know who that is.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
That's it's actually funny. You mentioned Greg Kostikian earlier.
oh yeah.
I've known Greg for many years. He was actually the advisory board of my first company, Warcry. He was one of the people who helped me start that company. And one of the things Greg pointed out to me many, many years ago is that the game industry is absolutely terrible about allowing its game designers to be stars. Says every other industry, every other creative industry, it puts the creatives front and center. You know who
Yeah.
directs your movies, you know who makes your music, you know who your TV stars, like who writes your books. He said, but he's like, what's the name of the guy who designed Axis and Allies, the best-selling war game of Milton Bradley's series? Nobody knows who designed Axis and Allies, right? Just they couldn't tell you. And it was he actually ended up starting in one of the very first indie video game company platforms to kind of do something about it. It was Manifesto Games. So that's a different story. But I realized he was right, and ever since then, I've always taken an almost religious interest in trying to know who the game designers are behind the games that I love. Because it's kind of sad, right? Like, nobody would think of not knowing who Arthur Conan Doyle is when they think of Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah.
right? But like,
Yeah.
very few people know who Dave Arneson is relative to what they should, or who Gary Gygax is, or whoever you want to pick, right? Or Sandy Peterson for Call of Cthulhu or whatnot. And it's kind of a tragedy. So
I mean, Sandy, we invited him to the convention too, because it was like, oh my God, I'm talking to
yeah,
Sandy Peterson online. I'm going to ask him to come to Arnecon,
yeah,
because
absolutely,
that was one of the really significant games in the trajectory of the
absolutely,
genre.
absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah,
had to do a little plug in there for Arnecon.
no, as you
Sandy
should. I mean, as
Peterson.
where I was going with it is one of the things you guys have done a really good job about, I think, is putting those guys front and center, and it's just really great. Like,
It's weird because there's I don't like to talk about politics, but there are certain people that are going to be sort of dangerous for some people to have them at a convention, and we don't care. I don't really care what your personal politics are. You do game stuff, great. Come do games. That's all I care about. And so, like, when I asked you to come to the convention, how many conventions are you going to be going to this year? Or have you been to so far this year?
I've been to one, and then prior to that, it was like 0 for about 10 years. So.
Okay, yeah, and it's like, I don't know why, because I think, I like, and it's funny because I'm kind of a proponent of like a really free-form play style.
Yeah.
With my D&D, and it's just what I like to run, and
Sure.
And I will play anything, and so like in a way, what you've created with ACKS is very much a different direction, but it's like, no, I love that too. I did a whole trajectory. I was a war gamer. I played D&D. Then
Yeah.
we wanted more detailed combat, so we were playing. This was early on, like '79, in the Labyrinth,
Sure.
Steve Jackson games,
Oh yeah, yeah.
or back then it was made metagaming.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I
Melee,
played all
Wizard.
these
Yep.
games, and then I've just come back, and it was like, I just don't have the time to do all of the stuff that's required for that kind of play.
Sure.
I just can you just point me to the dungeon, and we're just going to go kill stuff for 3 or 4 hours, and then we're done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then next time you show up, whoever's there gets out their character sheet. We do
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah.
It's very, very beer and pretzel style gaming, because it's impossible to find people who want to do the wargaming thing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, well, I think there's a very large demand for that. I sort of sailed upriver in the sense of when I designed ACKS, but I felt like there was a niche of people who really wanted that and it wasn't being served. So why not serve it, right? Because I had a relatively unique background in my mix of war games and tabletop. But
But you're also like I mean, it's like your personal campaign, pretty much, like the rules, right?
mhm. Yeah, it grew out of
Yeah.
my
So it's like this heavily, it's homebrewed, but
mhm.
it's been written down, and
Yep.
it's been heavily play tested in your own personal campaign. And
Yeah.
so it's like, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I'm going to make the campaign that appeals to what I feel like running.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, like I said, I'll play anything if it's, you know, I'm open to whatever. I'm not like a snob about what I play in.
I mean,
I just don't want to
I'm the
DM
same.
that
Yeah.
kind of game as a DM is all.
I play. I mean, I'll play almost anything. I've run almost everything. I mean, I've run story games, even which
Yeah.
probably surprise people. Like, um, you know, mostly it's I really like that tabletop role playing war game blend. So, and that's relatively rare. But like, I loved Car Wars. Remember Car Wars, where
Oh,
like
yeah.
you could play Car Wars as a role playing game where you've got your little driver and he's leveling up his driving and gunning skill, and you got a spreadsheet where you're designing all your cars and everything. Like, I loved that.
I think they made an RPG out of it later.
It did later,
But
yeah.
Chris, when it first came out, my business partner and co-director, Chris, when he was a kid, he was probably 14 when that came out, and he
Yep.
actually made his own rules for a Car Wars RPG.
Nice.
You know, it might be like 3 sheets of rules, handwritten, but I mean, a set of rules is like that. A prototype is really tiny.
That's right. That's right.
It
That's
doesn't
where,
have any of the descriptive stuff in there. It's just charts and equations, you know.
yep, that's where it starts.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Can I do a quick pitch for the convention since we're talking about it, just to
You
get the facts out
absolutely,
there?
yeah, let's pitch. Let's talk.
Yeah, let's pitch. I mean, it's just, here's the shirt. I guess we have to lock down the sales on the shirts for the ones that get delivered at the convention because we have to order them. But as you can see, it's October 10th through 12th. It's in the Twin Cities. You can go to our website, TFOTT, and get a badge. And
The link is in the description of the video.
okay, link is down there in the description. Get down there and start clicking.
Yep.
Got a lot of people coming that don't get a lot of hoopla about them and should. It's the 50th anniversary. For instance, it's the 50th anniversary of Dungeon Board Game. It's the 50th anniversary of Tunnels and Trolls, only the second RPG ever created. And so we're going to have David McGarry's going to be there. He's always at Arnecon because he's part of the Blackmoor bunch. But we decided to bring in Ken St. Andre just because it's like nobody else is.
That's awesome.
You know, and we're not. I mean, there's not. I don't know. We're not going to bake him a giant cake or anything, but it's just like, hey, it's the 50th anniversary. Let's just bring him in and see what happens, and at least just thank him for like, hey, you made a cool game.
Yeah.
You know, mechanically, it's really interesting. It's way different from D&D. And so we got them, and trying to think, you know, you're coming.
Yep. Sandy will be there.
Sandy will be there. Who are the other big that just, I guess that's it. So the top 3 billings are you, Sandy, and Ken. And then we've got all the Blackmoor bunch people who are just, they're always there every year. And which is fun because, like, if you're into wargaming, I think it's all packed now, but Ross runs Games of Strategos, which is like the variant version of the original 1880s game.
Yep.
And it's Wesley's variant. And that's really interesting. So I always make sure I always register to play in that game. So I take away a slot from what's available to everybody else. But Just as an example, Mike Carr is going to be there with Minicon. It's kind of like they had a convention called Minicon, and it was really focused on Fight in the Skies. And so they're just going to have a room, and it's just 247 Fight in the Skies in that room. And so Mike Carr will be there, and who else? I don't know. There's a lot of people coming, and a lot of people that are coming just as guests are people that would be familiar to you if you look at like the YouTube OSR sphere. There's a lot of those people are going to be there.
Yeah, Greg Gillespie is going to be there.
Greg Gillespie, yeah,
so, who's just absolutely probably
Greg's a guest.
Yeah, he's a guest, and he's probably the greatest living mega dungeon creator in the industry right now, right? Like, just
really,
yeah, he's fantastic at mega dungeons. I mean, most people like will create one mega dungeon in their life, and they're like, yeah, that was really exhausting, and I've completely plumbed the depths of my soul to create this 1,000-page dungeon. And Greg's like, this year's mega dungeon. I don't know how he does it. It's genuinely.
I didn't realize his modules are actually mega dungeons.
Oh yeah, they're.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah,
magnificent. Yeah,
I met him at DaveCon last spring, and we just we sat down, we started talking, and we just hit it off. And I was like, oh man, you got to come to Arnecon. You'll have a blast. And so he's going to be awesome. At Arnecon.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was really just kind of like a personal connection of like, oh, you're fun to hang out with and drink scotch with. Come to Arnecon.
I chat with Greg online a lot, but hadn't had a chance to hang out with him in person. So I'm like really excited to do that.
Oh, super duper guy. You'll love it. Yeah.
He and I have chatted a bunch online, and if you read his dungeons, he shares some similar thought process to me as well, in terms of like he's very detail oriented, very similitude driven, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to hanging out with him. I mean, I'm currently in a Call of Cthulhu campaign that I'm playing on Thursday nights, so I'm going to totally harass Sandy Peterson when I see him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, oh shit! You know what I need to do actually is I need to make sure I bring my copy of Call of Cthulhu and make him sign it. So,
I have a funny story about that because I had my copy, and it seems like I'm a little bit of a slob. I can't help it. I'm just like that, and so I always go through these phases where I try to tidy up my home, and so the thing is that you're supposed to find the things you're not using and throw them away. Right. And I just kind of looked around my house and looked at the things that were sitting on top of piles to throw away. So I grabbed my box set of original first edition Call of Cthulhu, and I was like, oh, no. I haven't played this in 20 years, and I threw it in the dumpster.
Oh, no.
And it was just a stage. Like, I don't know how I dip in and out of different hobbies. I'm kind of all over the place with stuff. And even the filmmaking to me is kind of a hobby. It's like, I don't always want to be a filmmaker. I want to do a lot of other things, so it's kind of writer, filmmaker, game player, toy train, addict, whatever. Yeah. So over the years, I've done that, just thrown stuff away. So yeah, I don't have a copy of Call of Cthulhu. And then I sold what was left over that wasn't in the box on eBay. So sorry, Sandy.
Oh, yeah. I went through a phase when I did that, and I got rid of a bunch of my stuff, and then I totally regretted it and have been slowly buying it all back. And so now I'm like, renewed my collection. But now I'm also getting to the point where my house is overflowing with stuff, and so I'm wondering, like, am I going to have to go through another purge? And if so, how is my wife going to feel when I throw out her stuff to make room for my stuff? Like, it's
you have to have respect for those things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your wife's property is one of them.
Be like, we just didn't have room for those dishes. I don't know. Or just,
we could just use paper, right? Easy to purchase, disposable. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, she's not watching tonight. Okay, good. I got away with it.
Oh yeah. Woo.
Well, speaking of Arnecon, I did want to share. So I was talking about this with some other folks earlier on my Before All Others post. So I'm actually going to be running an all-elf scenario at Arnecon to celebrate Before All Others. So the folks that are signed up for my game, they're going to be playing elf characters, and they're going to go in the book as playtesters for Before All Others. So we'll be having an official Before All Others playtest at Arnecon, because the con closes almost simultaneously with the close of my my Kickstarter campaign.
Oh
So
wow.
that'll be pretty cool. And so the folks who truck their ass out to Minneapolis to game with me we'll get their names in the book as playtesters.
Is there any way we can add another session so you can get more folks into it? Because we'd be glad to add another. I mean, I don't think your schedule's too busy. Maybe.
No, I've got one on Friday night and one on Saturday night, so I could
Okay.
probably do one on. I could do like a Sunday afternoon one, maybe.
Sunday afternoon. Okay, we'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah, something like that. Or Saturday afternoon. It can be hard to run two back to back because I lose my voice, but maybe something on Sunday afternoon if there's still a slot open might be cool.
Sunday late morning maybe.
Yeah.
No, that'd be great. I think it's great that you're doing that. Our playtesters for our book were basically just people that came to game night.
Yeah, totally, right?
Like, yeah, and I was like, well, you guys are the first people to play in Tonnisborg for 35 years, so your name should be written somewhere. So they're, I mean, they're play testers. They're like the people who lost characters in horrible ways in Tonnisborg.
That's right.
And so it was a great honor. I think like one of the Jeremy who's in the what is it, Bards of Greyhawk, he came to play one night and in Tonnisborg. He's played since with us, but it was like he lost his character that night, and it was just he kind of was like, I haven't had this happen in ages. Like, you know, we've been playing all this like really kind Dungeons and Dragons where you just go in and live, and it's like, oh no, you like open the door with the whites behind it, and you're done for. Love tap.
It's very funny how different the play culture was back then. You hear those guys talk about it, and they routinely take for granted a play style that would, I think, really enrage a lot of the younger gamers who are used to. There's just much more a sense that, you know, you make your character and your character is supposed to be centered to the story. It's just a different vibe entirely.
It's just a different, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I think I see, this would be a whole other show, but I see so many parallels between the development of paper RPGs and war games and computer games. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of crosstalk between them.
Yep.
And so as an early computer game player, a lot of those games were difficult to learn. I still play Empire, which is a Star Trek game on the Cyber One system, and it's hard to learn how to play it. It takes you 2 weeks just to remember the keystrokes, and because there's enough there, and it uses a different key arrangement than a standard keyboard, and so there's like just learning the interface, and then the tactics and the use of things is just something that takes years to develop the skills. There's no carryover from other games to it and stuff.
Yeah.
But back to the original idea, it's just hard to play, and when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
And as a beginner, you go in and you're like, yay, I'm going to do stuff, and if you run into anybody that knows what they're doing, you're done.
Yeah.
And then even the early I mean, it's not really AI. Even the original Dungeons and Dragons on the Plato system, D&D, it's not an AI, it's just a program. It's like, this monster shows up, it has these characteristics, it attacks, you know, the donkulation happens, and the result is donculated at you, and either you survived and lose some hit points, or you're done and you have to start over with another character. And so that's kind of, and that evolved, and you see it in games where things get interfaces get better, which that's kind of a good thing. Mm-hmm. But also they start to realize, if we want to sell a lot of these, we need to have our users enjoy it.
Right.
Because unless you're really into computer games, you're not going to enjoy dying in your first time out. And so they graduated it, and they keep doing that. And I'm curious if they're not, you know, they're going to start putting AIs in there that keep it feeling dangerous,
but not actually being.
But it'll never kill you, but it just feels dangerous, and so it's sort of rigged in your favor.
Yep. And I absolutely think they're going to do that. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, it's like, I mean, it's kind of weird because there's the whole addiction mechanism that surrounds these things, and so you're creating this electronic addiction for people. And I mean, they do it. Social media is terrible about it. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but it just thought it was something worth talking about. It's
Well,
a concern, you know.
I did a TEDx talk on this about 10 years ago, and it was prompted by going back and reading old books and looking at how vastly different the grammar and paragraph length and sentence length was. It was just a much higher reading grade.
Yeah.
And it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole. And it turns out there's this very interesting phenomenon where what maximizes pleasure for us in the short term as a reader, as an example, is generally like about reading something about 2 levels easier than your best reading grade, right? So if you can read at reading grade
Oh, wow.
12, you kind of you're happiest in the short term reading at reading grade 10. But what makes you a better reader and what strengthens your relationship to reading and to books in general is reading at or above your maximum reading level. So if you're
Right.
reading at 12, like you get the maximum benefit from reading at reading grade 13. So what happens is the publishers figure this out and they figure out where the average reading grade of readers is. And
Hmm.
so once they figure out how to test for this and calculate this, all of the publishers, whether it's newspapers, magazines, books, they all start to push the reading grade down a little bit because it makes it all more palatable. And it's the equivalent to like, you add more sugar to the food. It makes it a little bit more palatable. People like it more. And so then now their reading level isn't being tested as much. And so then over time, now you have to take it down another level and another level and another level. And it more or less in slow motion is the same thing we're seeing with like attention spans on people using video content, right? Like when YouTube came out, people thought, oh my God, we're all going to destroy our brains with these short form 15-minute videos instead of hour-long documentaries.
Right.
And now YouTube is considered long form because TikTok is short form, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and I think a similar thing has happened with video games. Like when I think back the earliest RPGs that I used to play, right? Like, they had thick instruction manuals and they had, you had to make your own map. You had, and you had to keep track of the quests in our journal that you kept on your own. Like you had to keep track of it. And
Right.
now all that's done for me. It's automated. It's easy, and it's just the pure dopamine ride. But that's not necessarily good for us.
No, I don't think so either. I think that I mean, music is a good example. They did this research, and there's a certain part of your brain that responds to music, and it's not necessarily being a musician. It's just even listening to music. And those who are really into music, that part of their brain is enlarged because
Hmm.
it's literally like a muscle. Your brain just
Right.
grows,
Right.
and I think it can even like grow. Like if you, as an adult, you can just listen to music, and it'll make that part of your brain grow. And
Yep.
so your whole brain probably has those properties in one way or another. We don't really
That's
know
right.
yet, right? The big one for me is just even the mapping programs. Like I love playing a dungeon game or a wilderness game because you're making a map as you go, ideally. And
Hmm.
they took that out. Apparently, they took that out of later RPGs where the players just get a map on the table.
Yeah.
Um, and no diss on Shadow Dark as a game system, but I see people playing that, and I saw a whole map just drawn out on the table, and it's like, where do you want to go,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I was like, that's no fun. And now I see people. I can navigate and give me a map in the real world, and I can go anywhere because I
Yeah.
love looking at maps and finding my way around in the real
Yep.
world. And I think that's kind of a skill that people, now that people have these little GPS devices, they're just like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. No, for real.
How do you look at this flat little thing and then go over there?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. It's becoming they British cabbies, so London taxi cab drivers used to have to take a multi-year study period as an
I've
apprentice,
heard of that. Yeah.
and they had to learn because the streets are famously difficult to navigate, and they had to learn all of these different areas, and they had to pass a test, and so they thought to themselves, well, that's really interesting. So they did these brain scans of London taxi cab drivers. And it turns out the areas of their brain responsible for visuospatial memory are all hugely enlarged. Like they're just gigantic in their
Huh.
brains. Um, but not anymore.
Not
Not
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tragic. I don't know. I mean, I find it interesting that you're kind of interested in these sort of human consciousness things, because that's kind of what got me started. Um, I had learned how to program and stuff when I was really young, but around 2008, when everything was going to crap and people were losing jobs and stuff, I
Yeah.
went back to college.
Oh, wow.
And I dropped out not long afterwards, not because I had to, but we were going to start a company.
Yeah.
And so I was really interested in all this human consciousness stuff. And so, yeah, I'm really curious about that stuff. And the whole approach I used with the movie Secrets of Blackmoor really relates to ideas having to do with um, the way things evolve, and also just like sort of anthropological ideas. And that was kind of my approach. And so, yeah, so I'm just like, ooh, well, this is interesting. He can tell me things I might not know about. You know,
Yeah.
if he's nerding out on these things like I do sometimes.
It's definitely an area I've nerded out on. Like, so sometimes, people have occasionally have criticized ACKS as that the writing grade is too high. Like my prose
Mm.
is higher writing grade than it needs to be, or that it's very information dense. But speaking bluntly, like, I actually see those as virtues of ACKS and not as flaws, because I look back at myself as a young man, and even as a young boy, like, I taught myself long division because I wanted to be able to calculate war game ratios of, if I've got combat factor of 10 and he's got combat factor of 4, what do I use on the matrix, right? Like, I taught
Right.
myself division to do that. I learned vectors because I was playing Traveler. I joke all the time. Everything I ever needed to learn in life, I learned it playing role playing games or war games, and like, I just think it's immensely valuable, and it helps you become a polymathic human being who is sort of like got more going on up here than what you get if you just spend your life, on the lowest common denominator TikTok video. So, like, it's part of why I'm so passionate about the hobby, is because I think it's one of the last. It's like like Picard and Star Trek is like, the line must be drawn here, no further. I'm like, this is the
Right.
line, right? Like, this is the last bastion of the cognitively challenging hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like a creative
Yeah,
challenge. But that other thing is that, again, like, what the companies are presenting to you might there's, I hate to rehash the whole like grognard argument, and it's not like I'm going to pick on any particular product, because I think the whole industry is doing it.
yeah,
But it used to be the idea, even like Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, Rob Kuntz, everybody at TSR when it first started, they couldn't fathom the idea that somebody would want to buy a pre-generated module.
right,
Like, it just, and so they licensed all of that to Judges Guild.
right,
Judges Guild, I don't know how much they made. I suspect they were making a couple $1 million a year making prefabricated dungeon stuff.
yeah,
And because people, I mean, some people don't have the time to come up with stuff, but
yeah,
it was really focused more on it. Even then, the prefabricated stuff was kind of toolboxy.
yeah. That's
If
right.
you look at, I assume you've seen a lot of the like City State of the Invincible Overlord,
Absolutely. I
or
have a
Wilderlands
ton
of
of
High
judges. I have
Fantasy.
a ton of Judges Guild stuff. Ready reference sheets, fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm always talking about that stuff, but it doesn't handhold you.
No.
And so I see the hand holding as useful if you're like writing, like I'm working on a book right now where I'm trying to teach people ideas about how D&D was played a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm presenting ideas of, this is how I would do this. It's not really in the guise of, this is how you must do it. But the newer stuff seems to be very programmed, very turnkey. That's another
Turnkey.
word they used to use a lot, and I don't know what the term is now, but the idea is that you give it, somebody gets it, and there's almost no way they can get it wrong.
Yeah,
But innovation actually comes from getting it wrong.
exactly.
Like a new idea is usually like a misunderstanding, and then trying to solve that problem with a different idea that's close to it, and you come up with a different solution. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's kind of strange to me, because I felt like, I mean, I don't know. When did you start gaming?
Well, let's see. So we moved from Greece to the United States in 1979, and I would have been 4 years old. And my brother was 13 at that point because he was 9 years older than me and had just started high school. I think he started high school that year and got into the D&D club and came home with the D&D books. And I made him teach me that year. So I guess I would have been 5 years old the first
Oh
time
my
I played.
God, you're probably the youngest D&D player I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. And you know, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't like
Right.
a good player, but like I started playing. And so then what they did is there was this Gary Gygax Dungeons and Dragons coloring book that they sort of tried to distract me with because I kept harassing them to let me play and color in the pictures in their books and things. So they got me the Gary Gygax Dungeons and Dragons coloring book. And little did they know that that had like a dumbed down version of the rules in it at the bottom, that it had its own little game. And so I taught
Oh,
myself
wow.
how to play that little game in the coloring book. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I learned how to play the coloring book game. Now I'm ready to play again. And so then they got the red box and we played. Eventually, I started playing more regularly when Red Box came out, and like still remember getting killed by my brother playing Red Box. I fought a white dragon with my first hit die, my one hit die thief, and got killed. So yeah, I was really into it at a young age. Yeah, yeah,
That
and
was
so
when you
like
could roll up a character in like 10 minutes.
no,
And
exactly, exactly. So
you
like
know,
I'm
just be
not
back at
joking
it.
when I say like everything I ever learned in life, it was because of role playing games. Like it's an ongoing joke in my house. Like my wife will walk in and I've got a book on mushroom farming, and she's like, "Okay," and it's because I'm working on a dwarf source book, and so I need to learn about mushroom farming now. Like
It's
it's
so
just
funny. Yeah. No, it's just funny because you talk about these things and it's like, if you're an inquisitive person, there are these things that you will look at.
yeah,
Mushrooms are something I also was curious about and I was exploring. Like, I was on the internet, looking
yeah,
at like, well, because my dad used to take us mushroom hunting all the time. He was fanatical. And, and so I was like, well, what if I just grow them myself in an aquarium or something, right? And it's the same sort of thing. It's like, but there's like a million things like that where, and I think RPGs really do lead you out. I have my computer sitting on this stack of books here, but on one of my YouTube shows, I talked about the Castle book by Macaulay, David Macaulay,
hmm
and just like these early sources that were like just like a really simple guidebook for
yeah,
what these things were. And as
yeah,
a teenager, I was just sucking that stuff down because I wanted to know more about how did these things happen,
yeah.
and how did we do that? And yeah,
And when I'm guessing what are you, are you maybe 10 years older than me? I guess I'm not sure.
you're 10 years older than me.
No, I'm guessing how
Is
old
that
you
what you're
are. I
saying?
don't know. I'm not sure how old you are. So, but
Well,
I'm
let's
guessing
go with
we're
that. Let's go with that.
okay.
I'm about
Um,
10 years older than you, probably.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Did I say the
Okay.
opposite?
You
Yeah.
said the opposite, or I
Okay.
understood it as the opposite. I was like,
Because you were saying you were playing video games in the 70s,
yeah.
and so
No,
I
I
was
was like,
like,
oh, well, thank you.
yeah, you were playing.
Yeah, I'm about 10 years older than you.
Yeah. So, looking back, it was so much harder to get information then about stuff like this. Like, if you wanted to figure out like what were the parts of a medieval castle, like you had to like go to the library and look up the book that had like parts of a medieval castle, right? You know,
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's
and
where I got that Macaulay book I found. I
exactly,
used to hang out in the
exactly,
library as a kid, so I was a
exactly.
nerd.
Yeah. And everything was challenging, right? And so like, when David Zeb Cook does Oriental Adventures and it's like filled with all these exotic Asian monsters and whatnot, like that's literally the first time in my entire life I've ever encountered any of these words or these terms. And
That was so heavily researched. Like there
yeah,
was that big freak out over it. I don't like, again, I don't like to do the political stuff, but if people understood, it's that surface internet thing of like, you see the bad thing on the internet and you point at it and
yep,
scream. Um, and, uh, and yet for its time, it was so heavily
so
researched as a
heavily
resource
researched.
for all of us gamers to
Yeah,
like interact with this other culture and this other thing.
yep.
And, yeah, it was phenomenal.
Phenomenal for its time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
people just have no idea how difficult it was to do that kind of research back then. And the stuff wasn't translated. And if it wasn't translated, it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm just gonna put it in Google Translate." Like, you're like, "Well, I guess I'll just never get to read this book because it's written in the language I don't speak."
Right. Right. Well, it's my big story is being a kid and just getting into D&D and wanting to know more. And it like you're kind of curious about these things because I had little medieval knights and stuff.
Yep.
But when you start playing a game, you really want to like make your game as accurate as you can.
Yeah.
And that's the early stage. Now I'm like, I want to be as ridiculous as I can, but that's a whole other story. So my parents had a lot of books in the house, and the thing that seemed based on the cover to be closest to what I needed for my medieval fantasy games that would tie in with my Lord of the Rings readings and stuff was Herodotus.
Right.
And so I read Herodotus, and I remember like, this just seems kind of like it's sort of like the Middle Ages, but
You're right.
there's something different going on here, And
Yeah.
so I read all of Herodotus, and I was just perplexed because it was sort of medieval, but sort of not medieval.
Yep.
And nowhere in the edition, I guess it was just sort of assumed that you would know when Herodotus was written, but there wasn't like a foreword that said the year or anything.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And so it just amuses me because I'm reading like ancient history, trying to do research for my maybe 1,000 years later or 2,000 years later campaign.
Yeah.
Yep.
I take comfort in knowing that in the Middle Ages they were doing the same thing, right? Because if you read like the Alexander romance, and it's just literally they're just like taking Alexander the Great, but he's got knights and they have lances and they're just hanging out doing chivalry things. You're like, okay, I'm gonna run with it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you have the original source that says that that's the way it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or like Shakespeare as well. Like Shakespeare just gave no shits whatsoever about anachronism. Like it was just all good. So I think there's a long, if you took a guy like a Shakespeare or something and had him run a D&D campaign, it would be gonzo as heck.
Right. Actually, it'd be fascinating. I think he'd be better for a Brownstein, actually.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like kind of a much ado about nothing Brownstein.
Right. Totally.
That I wanted to come back to the Arnecon just briefly and ask you, like, are you going to get to play anything that you want to play there?
Yeah, I'm signed up. I'm signed up for a couple games. Yeah, I am,
okay.
and my brother is as well. So we kind of went through and looked for it. He and I both really love miniature games. He has a huge miniature collection. 3D prints his own terrain.
Why isn't he bringing it and running a game?
He probably could at some point, but
maybe next year.
He's just very busy. He's a father.
Yeah.
He has a full-time job and works very, very hard. So I think, but we'll encourage him to do that. He's been in his spare time. He does the Grey Brotherhood YouTube show with me, and he also edits all those. And then he's also been one of the project leads on the ACKS virtual tabletop. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So my brother, he's a very gifted software developer, computer engineer. So yeah, I think between the two of us, we can go back in time and I'll be like, I can tell you about constitutional law and history. And he'll be like, I will now reinvent Western civilization because my brother would not bother learning these things.
But that's a good teamwork thing.
It's good teamwork. No, it's very good teamwork. Yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be super fun
So what war game are you playing?
Oh gosh, what did we sign up for? Now I'm gonna misremember. Let's see. Let me pull it up here. So
because I'm not sure what all the war games are that people are running there.
Yeah. So let's see. All right. We are playing in Dave Arneson's Medieval Battle with Bill Hoyt.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's based on?
No, I don't.
Oh, this is neat. Dave Arneson ran a game. It's really hard to date it. Bill Hoyt thinks it was in 1971 or so.
Yeah.
I think that the notes might be from like 1969 or so, or early 1970. And if you look at the I show it. It's a quandary, and so there's this little section in Secrets of Blackmoor where I talk about Dave Arneson's medieval battle notes,
Right.
and it's sort of like a Brownstein game. It's sort of like a war game, and it's sort of like a Brownstein game.
Right.
And so it has these different factions, and you have your pieces on the table, but you're also negotiating with the other players and trying to
Oh, that
create
sounds like good
alliances.
fun. Yeah.
And so it's got like 3 different sides. There's even like kind of a secret side that players
wow.
don't know about at the beginning of the game. And that's just fascinating because we have those notes. Bill played it,
Uh-huh.
and he remembers the night it happened because they played till about 4 a.m.
Wow.
And the story I heard is that like one guy was getting chased around the ping pong table by another guy that totally outnumbered him, and finally the guy managed to like trap him in the corner of the table, and somehow they were playing that you couldn't leave the table or something.
Right.
And he managed to like wipe him out, but it was like 4 a.m. when the game ended. They started at like
wow.
1 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's what you do when you're like 20
Yep.
20 years old or so,
Yep.
18 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
And but it's fascinating because it's like this real transitional stage in the history of the Blackmoor Bunch, where they're using fog of war elements in their RPGs to turn, or in their war games to turn them into RPGs. And then at the same time, they're using sort of the diplomacy ideas with that,
right,
and such. And then the other thing is like people, like Bill thinks it was played with chainmail, but you look at all the notes and they aren't chainmail. And my suspicion is that Dave Arneson was using the Strategos Ancients variant,
okay,
and just scaling down, because Ancients really kind of play the same as medievals.
right.
And he just scaled down the units, but he was using Strategos to run it. And so it's like a really historical game.
That's
and
really
you're
cool.
playing it with a guy who's literally listed it in the sheets as one of the players that
Amazing.
still exist. So it's like it's a really cool thing to be able to play that.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly. I saw that it was one of Dave Arneson's games, and so that's why I signed up for it. But I didn't know the full story behind it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really
cool.
Cool.
If you go back, I don't know if you have the movie or not, but if you go to the part, there's like a little chapter, and it's like the Dave Arneson's medieval battle notes, and it just talks about there's this thing, and you can stop it and look at the sheets, and it's like everybody has a sheet which is very Brownstein-like. So
right.
It seems like it's inspired by Brownstein.
Yeah.
Because you have these, but I think they were doing some Brownstein ideas much earlier. It's just hard to prove that they were doing it.
Right.
And they were reading the stuff from the English designers. Yep. It's not like they were totally in a vacuum.
Yeah.
But they did things differently. I think that there's like Corns is another thing that I think that a lot of people, if they want to do a linear progression thing, they're like, well, Corns exists, but it's not like I talked to the group, and some people in their group had played Corns, but not everybody had, or even knew what it was. Wesley says he'd heard of the guy, but he hadn't played it yet when he designed Braunstein. And so, I mean, it all kind of, it's in the zeitgeist, but it's really hard to create this sort of like linearity within it, because I just I think it's like a river with lots of eddies, and it's just finding its way downstream.
Yeah, powerful current.
Sorry, I go off on these little history things because I get excited about it. It's interesting.
No, it's great. It's great. Well, that wraps up our 90 minutes. So everyone, reminder, Arnecon coming up fast. It's October 10 to 12 in the Twin Cities. The link is in the description below, so that you can sign up if you're not already going. Going to be running games there. I'm running ACKS. I'm running Ascendant. Maybe I'll be running another bout of ACKS. It's going to be big. We're going to do all elves if you're there for the session, so you get in before all others as a playtester. So, a huge thank you to Griff, who I've said this elsewhere, but I was out in the cold for a long time on the convention circuit, and I'm genuinely very grateful that you invited me, and you didn't just invite me; you made me a guest of honor. I mean, it's a huge honor to be a guest of honor at Arnecon with those greats. So,
this is the second time. We tried to get you in last year, and you got sick.
I did. I had COVID last year at this time.
And so we came back. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like we can't afford to bring you in as a guest every time, but if you want to come back, I mean, you're more than welcome, because We love getting the good gamers there, you know.
I'm really, really grateful you guys had me
Yeah.
as a guest. So thank you for that. And
Oh, yeah.
everyone, you know, if you're at Arnecon, definitely come look me up. You know, make sure you also harass my brother while you're there. That'll be an important part of the mission. So
If you know somebody in the Twin Cities, I mean, we're local to anybody in the Twin Cities. If you got a buddy that's a war gamer or an RPG player, it's like you should send them an email and be like, this is the stuff, guy.
yeah,
You know?
and if you do go out to the Twin Cities, make sure you go to the source while you're there, because the source is
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, excellent.
Thanks
Well, everyone,
again.
yep, good seeing everyone. Griffith, thanks for being on the show, and we'll cut here and see you guys all next week.